our feed what we look like.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, my Wi-Fi would crash if I didn't live on all this. Really? Yeah, I shouldn't be asking this on live, but what episode are we on?
Episode 8.
Episode 8? Are you sure?
Yes.
I thought it was 9.
I looked earlier, and I believe
it's 9.
Oh, it's 9. Son of a gun. Okay. So I put 8 on this.
Change the microphone again.
Okay, thanks. Let me see if I can edit YouTube real quick. Yes, I can. Thank God. I literally looked at it and then I still put 8.
That's
okay. So Mary Beth usually does the introduction, and then we will probably try to make it as organic as possible. There's no way that I'm going to escape this microphone in my face, by the way.
Put it to the side. There you go.
But then I have to face this way the entire time, so it feels weird, you know? Unless...
Looking at the corner of your eye, you're like, dang it.
No, this doesn't work. Oh, maybe
there.
here.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
There
You can see like a segment of my face. All right. Sorry, I just got to get that part out. Okay. All right. Shall we start?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is If Communities Could Talk podcast, episode 9. We are very excited today because we have a special guest, Kye from Out There Yoga.
Yay.
So we're really excited to interview her about everything yoga. So this conversation is going to go who knows what way, but yeah. So if you could give us a rundown of exactly what you do with yoga, or however you want to put it.
What I do with yoga?
Yeah.
You mean in terms of Out There Yoga?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a yoga teacher in the Tucson area, so I've been a yoga teacher here for like 5-6 years, and I was teaching in a studio, a couple different studios for a few years, and I started to get the itch to just do yoga in a way that I was doing it personally. I do a lot of backpacking, a lot of camping and stuff like that. So I started to have this vision of, offering yoga in a way that I was actually practicing it. And it started really, really experimental. And it pretty much was just somewhere in nature that's really aesthetic, that gives those nice views. And then the yoga I was teaching in the studio just kind of paired with that. So that's the gist, I guess.
Do you remember when the first event you put on, like the date?
It was in October. What year was that? It would have been 2019, I think.
What was it?
Because we had our anniversary event last year. Yeah, so it was 2019. Yep.
So you've been in business then with Out There Yoga for almost 2 years now.
Yeah, I guess it is almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Yay.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
really exciting. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
What was the first time or the first exposure that you had to yoga, overall, as a person that practices it?
I think it's kind of like a 2-part situation. So I didn't really know what yoga was until I was an adult, but I grew up a gymnast. I didn't compete or anything. It wasn't as cool as it sounds, but I was in gymnastics. That was like my sport growing up. And so I always had this connection to moving my body and trying to see what my body was capable of in that way. And as I got older, I kind of phased out of the idea of wanting to compete. So I just kind of bounced out of that. But I still wanted to explore what my body could do. I, via practicing, could tell that when I wasn't practicing, I would kind of lose the abilities a little bit. So I just kept up with that. I would do back bends and stretches and stuff up until I was probably 15, 16. And I would literally lay out a blanket in my room and turn on some probably really dramatically calm music. For a teenager, it was a little funny to be playing that kind of music, but it felt good to me to do that. And I would do my stretches and back bends and all of that. So at that time, I didn't realize that what I was doing was kind of yoga. I just thought it was, me time, and I would lock my siblings out of my room for a little while and do that. But then it didn't come back into my life until much later. I was in college, and I was weightlifting a lot, actually. And I noticed I was getting so much more tight because of the muscle growth and all of that. And it was bothering me that my mobility was being inhibited by the weightlifting. And so there was a yoga studio right across the street from my gym. And I just started with my ex-partner. We would go there and, do yoga and then do lift, or lift and then do yoga. So It was kind of balancing that in that way. And if you practice yoga at all, it doesn't really take long in practicing, no matter what your reason for practicing is, that you start to notice some changes that were a little unexpected. And I really appreciated what it was doing in my mind and my body, and I got really curious about it. So I just kind of stuck with it.
I love that. I love that so much. I also really like that you're saying that when you started strength training, because that's something that we both do. Mary Beth also does yoga, but I don't do yoga. I do a lot of stretching, like regularly, pretty much every day, multiple times a day. I'm stretching all the time. I would like to, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like I literally, before I go to sleep, I like have to stretch, because if not, I'm like stiff everywhere because I work out a lot. But having some type of regimen like that, I think, is a really good thing. And we actually had a jiu-jitsu school owner on the show, Jaime, my brother actually, and he was just talking about how he has discovered yoga and it's helped him in his jiu-jitsu. So it's like, it seems to help other other ways of being active, like strength training, something like jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's probably a good thing for everybody to incorporate if they do some type of physical activity. Would you agree with that?
Totally. And admittedly, I don't know too much about jiu-jitsu, but what I do know and what I've heard from other people who practice it is that not only are the physical attributes the same in certain ways, but also the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu is very, very similar to the mental, goals and states that you achieve in yoga. So I've been really intrigued by jiu-jitsu, and I've wanted to actually dive in a little bit. I just haven't had the time to do that.
Let's drag her.
Yeah. So we Mary Beth and I have dipped a toe in.
Yeah, just barely.
Which we will talk about in a future show, by the way, if you guys are interested. But yes, I love that. That's really cool. What was the so I know that there are different poses. When you had a pose that was like really difficult for you, that it took you some time to get that pose and perfect it, I'm sure you're striving to perfection all the time, right? That's kind of like the practice. But what was like the first hard or difficult pose that took you some time and then to accomplish?
Well, growing up in gymnastics, I was very accustomed to big movements in my body. I was never afraid to be upside down, which is huge. That's like a kind of a big barrier a lot of people have to get past, is just putting their body upside down. We're not used to that. I was used to the big back bends and back handsprings and stuff like that. So there were a lot of things when I was entering into the yoga practice that already came so easily to me because of my background in gymnastics. And so I felt like I kind of had that, what else is here? And that's why the big poses are what kept me really interested. I was like, yes, this feels like home to me. Like this is what I want to be doing.
Cool.
And it wasn't until as you practice, you kind of learn how bad your, quote unquote bad your form is.
Yeah.
And so it was honestly some of the kind of seemingly easier poses that I didn't realize I was doing so incorrectly. And I had to really unlock a lot in my hips. I didn't know how tight my hips were and how tight my hamstrings were from strength training. And it was a lot of learning that it was the minuscule pieces, the little puzzle pieces that you put together to unlock different poses. So a lot of hip openers, like pigeon pose, and a lot of hamstring openers that were actually really tricky.
Yeah, so just to add on that, my mentor, I got my yoga cert as well, but she always said, the pose is not the goal. And like when you first start yoga, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna do these poses. But then after a while, you're just like, I think my ego was just getting in front of me. Great. You know?
Yeah, the more you learn,
The more you
realize
learn.
you don't know.
Yeah. Adding to that, so obviously yoga has its own philosophy, but people, they can make their own philosophy about it. So can you tell us a little bit about the philosophy you believe in yoga?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge lineage. I mean, when you're talking about yoga in traditional sense, a lot of it isn't even the poses. These poses just came around, I couldn't even give a date to it, but it's so, it's not very long ago in comparison to how long this practice has been around. And then the practice is, like you said, more of a philosophy than it is anything else. It's a way of living. It's a way of being. And for me, yoga is about just being as mindful as possible and keeping that connection to, I guess you could call it the higher part of myself, the more grounded part of myself. To me, the most inward part of myself that I connect to, that is kind of behind the brain doing all its work all day and the mind that kind of runs amok. It's that piece behind that really witnesses everything else. And my practice, whether it's meditation or the physical practice, is just all trying to get me back to living from that place and not letting all the other pieces control the show.
Yeah. Is there ever a time that you just don't want to practice yoga?
Yeah, like every day.
Every day. You're just like, no, I'm over it. And then like you're like, all right, I gotta do it.
Yeah, that's what's so funny. Is my teachers, they warn you, you're not gonna want to practice and you're gonna forget how potent the practice is almost instantly. It's crazy. You practice and you did maybe your hour of asana or maybe your 20-minute meditation and you're like, oh my gosh, why don't I do this every day 10 times a day? I see why. In an hour, your brain is doing its thing. You're in your to-dos and you don't want to do yoga. You don't have time for that. You're like, I can do that next week. I can do that in a month. Oh my gosh, I don't even recognize myself because I haven't practiced in so long. And then you finally do. And it's like, oh, I'm back. Why didn't I do that? It's like you never want to.
So would you agree that yoga is part discipline then?
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely what it is. One of my favorite books about yoga actually is called The Yoga of Discipline.
Oh.
And it's to me, the practice is that training to have discipline over your mind so that you can sit from behind it, and training to have discipline over your breath so you can make sure you're staying grounded, and discipline over your body to keep yourself moving and being mindful and not letting yourself fall into bad habits. It's all discipline to me.
Yeah, so then that also is going to transfer to other components of your life because you're going to have discipline to do other things that maybe you don't want to do that are good for you as well,
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there are so many times that you're looking forward to doing it, especially when you have this really cool concept of the out there yoga in your company. Can you tell us a little bit more about what like an event would look like? Are they all different? What are the like levels that you have in your classes?
Yeah, they are definitely all different, and that's mostly because they're ever evolving. Like I said, I kind of started it very experimentally, just like, well, let's see. I like doing yoga out in nature. Maybe some.
I love that, by the way. I just have to say that.
Yeah,
I think that's so cool.
Maybe other people want to do this with me. I'll just hike us out into the middle of nowhere, and it was, it kind of blew my mind.
You took a risk.
Yeah.
You took a huge risk, and it's like paid off.
It's not like I had to pay for the space or anything. It was kind of like, hey, everyone, come on out. And
yeah, it's still very cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun to see how many people had such great feedback, and I learned very early on that simple is better, that anytime I tried to overcomplicate it, it would just kind of get messy and people would be like, no, like I'm literally just here for yoga in the sunset, and it's like, oh, perfect. Yeah, I can do that. So I guess the basic event that I do most often, and I used to do it every month, and I've kind of tailored that back, partly due to the pandemic, partly just because I like the idea of these events being less often. So it's a little more special to people. But yeah, just a location out in nature. Usually, I mean, I try to pick spots that I know aren't technically probably illegal to be there without a permit, but we don't talk about that.
Scratch that.
But yeah, just a beautiful spot out in nature, and I just lead an hour yoga class the same kind of way I would do in a studio. And I try to keep these classes a little more simple, a lot of instruction, but also a lot of quiet space inside the poses so people can just enjoy the environment where they are. I try to recognize the fact that just because I make it a point to get outside 5 days a week doesn't mean everyone else does. And so maybe this is the opportunity that they have that month to be out somewhere on this hike or in nature. And I try to let them enjoy that through the practice.
Okay, so you don't have like music going or anything?
Oh, I do. Yeah,
okay.
I'm a huge music buff. I tend to play music probably louder than I should in nature. I just upgraded to this big speaker I wheel out there, so I love doing that. But it's more of like, instead of me talking the whole time, I try, because I talk a lot in my classes, I'm very technical. I love the innuendos of the poses and trying to give people as much instruction as possible. But I try to tailor that back a little bit when I'm doing these events and just let people have a little bit more of the just basic going through the motions and just enjoying the environment. But as these events have evolved, I do have an itch to kind of bring a little bit more. The last event at the zip line felt really aligned with what I want to be offering more of in the future, just because it was at this really cool location. There was like a before event where you could like zip line before.
Very fun, by the way.
Yes, definitely for that. But yeah, and then afterwards, we had a beer sponsorship, so we had some beers around the campfire and just got to hang out and have some snacks. So that felt really fun.
Yeah.
And I loved watching the community all chat afterwards and bond. And to me, that's kind of what it feels like it's all about.
What are your like age groups? Do you have like anyone can join or?
Yeah, anyone 18 and over.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to somebody 16 and under if they were, or 18 and under if they were maybe with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
All the legal, you learn when you're starting a business, you're a total infant when it comes to anything legal. And I've just been taking it one step at a time, trying to figure out what the legalities of everything is. But yeah, I would say the average person that comes is between college age and 35.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
So I've been to a couple of your events,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really fun. Though I'm trying to think of which one I started with. It was last September, and we weren't all the way up Mount Lemon, but it was a little bit right in the entrance.
I'm not gonna say where it was. It was just somewhere that probably wasn't. It wasn't probably illegal. We'll say that. I'm allowed to be there.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it was probably about 5,000 feet, that location. So you're not quite up in the pine trees, but you're still up away from the city heat and
Yeah.
get some really nice mountain views.
No, yeah, it was really cool because I've never done yoga outside. Like, it's like such a simple idea, and you wouldn't think about it. And I was like, why didn't I do this before?
I also feel that that's like the place to do it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like when I think of like peacefulness of yoga, I think like it should be outside. You know, we all everyone goes to like studios and stuff like that. But I think outside is just such a cool idea,
Well, it definitely comes with its own, that I've learned through the seasons as they change why this isn't a bigger thing than it is. I mean, it's huge challenges that you come up against. I mean, you can't just go to the thermostat and turn the AC down. You can't turn the wind off when everyone's mats are blowing away. There's been some funny when the bugs are buzzing around. People have wasps landing on their, it's all kind of like, I let people know at the very beginning, like, hey, this is part of the challenge of the practice. As things come up, just, go with the flow. You got to just go with it. And what those challenges end up doing is really niching down the group of people that like to come to these events. I mean, I don't just expect anyone that would go to a studio to be enjoying these kind of events. It kind of takes a special kind of person that's a little more open-minded, a little more go with the flow. But because of that, it ends up making these connections and friendships that people make at these events so much more potent because it's a similar group of people.
Yeah, and then when it works, you have like, maybe you have the mats flying away and all of that. But when it works and it's great and you're like breathing the fresh air it works, right? When it
Totally.
works, it works. So
Totally.
that's really cool.
No, it works. I was there.
Yeah, it's like every event, I just put it in my head, something funky. Whether one time it was the wasps, one time it was the wind. You know, it's always something. But once
Yeah.
you realize what it is, like there it is. All right, moving on.
The last one was really good, though. There was nothing wrong, I don't think. Like,
I've gotten really fond of private property. That property, my friend Emily owns that property, and to be on private property where you know you're allowed to be there,
Yeah.
they maintain the grounds, they can tell you what to expect,
Mhm.
and it just helps so much. It does slightly take away from we're out in the middle of nature and we hiked here. It's not, it's a little less of that quote unquote magic, but it's so much more doable on the planning end that I tend to be swaying more in that direction these days.
plus, you can add more events like how you did last time.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, obviously, you just, ask them straight up, like, hey, can we add this or bring other people in? Or
Totally.
so that's really cool.
Totally.
So you were kind of diving into the beginner aspect of how to own a business, and I know like it's going to be like 2 years right now, but what advice would you give someone that is trying to start something like this now? It doesn't have to be like outside yoga or anything, but
Right,
like, just
right.
in general.
Yeah, I mean, I start by saying I try to be super transparent about stuff like this because I think owning a business is trending and being an entrepreneur is trending right now, and it's so glamorized because so many people are selling the idea of entrepreneurship, right? So it's all hyped up and it's all glamorized. In no way is Out There Yoga my full-time job. I have a full-time job, and when I entered into owning this business, I didn't have intentions of replacing my income, which has given me the grace of taking it slow, doing it very organically, and not forcing anything that doesn't feel right. And if someday it becomes my full-time job, heck yeah, I would welcome that with open arms, but it's going to be a long process. And so I just want people to know that owning a business isn't about you wanting to have a business, so then poof, we create it. It's you seeing something in the world that you would like to help or fix or offer that you think would really benefit people or impact lives, and sticking to that instead of having the mindset of, I want to be self-employed, so I want to make a business that feels good to me. It's so much more about how can I help people? What can I offer? Is this a great idea? Would this impact people? And then kind of starting from there.
So where do you see Out There Yoga in 5 years from now?
It could go so many directions. I definitely want to scale these events. I want to have them be a place where people can come together and feel like they have something to look forward to, a big to-do, and they're going to meet a bunch of great people. And I'm kind of for the last 10 years of my life, I've gone to so many different festivals and like yoga festivals, music festivals and stuff like that, and tournaments for my Frisbee team. And I tend to be always around these big groups of people doing these fun things. It's not a business conference, it's for fun. And I know how much that impacts my life. Like if I look at my calendar and I see, ooh, in a few weeks, I'm doing that. It just makes the world of difference, And so being able to offer something like that in the yoga world for people locally is really special to me. And I want these events to become more than just an hour-long yoga class. I want people to be able to be exposed to maybe different offerings they've never seen before. Like we've had, I'm connected to some breath workers or some sound healers, and maybe getting people there for the yoga, and then maybe they get 15 minutes of this other thing they didn't even know existed, and they're like, wow, or, take it or leave it. And then get to hang out with everyone afterwards around a fire and drink some local beer, or eat some local snacks. I think that's so fun. So I would like to be doing more of that and just scale these events slowly, bringing more and more people in. I do have an itch to also do some traveling with it. There's a couple cities and a couple venues in mind that I think would be really cool to bring people to under these kind of circumstances. I have some friends doing some really cool things in other cities. So just getting to kind of bring Out There Yoga to these new environments and get people to see some cool stuff would be really nice too. Yeah.
So I know sometimes there's a little bit of a stigma on yoga because people are like, intimidated to,
Try.
step in that world. Do you have any advice for those people?
Yeah, try a different teacher. if you go to a yoga class, if you're brave enough to go to a yoga class, because I know it's huge. I mean, it's not easy to say I'm just gonna go to a yoga class. I have no idea what I'm doing. Start on YouTube. I mean, just get the basic. What's a down dog? What does it mean when they say this? What can I kind of generally expect? And then put yourself in the back of the class and know that nobody cares. Nobody's looking at you. The teacher's just so happy you're there. They're not gonna, judge you in any way. They're just there to help. And if you go to a class and you're like, oh, that was really weird, I don't know if I can even vibe with that, then go to a different teacher. Ask around, ask some friends that you feel like you relate to, which teachers they like, or what would they recommend, or even you can ask the teacher, hey, I know it sounds like it would be awkward, but it's totally not. I've had people do this to me multiple times, like, hey, this and this about this class was great, but I'm kind of looking for more of this. And I know so many teachers in the community, I was able to point them in a direction. And,
wow.
You're just happy to help. You're not there to like collect students. You're there to like offer yoga. And if you're not the right fit for somebody, then you probably know somebody who is. So yeah, just keep shopping around, trying teachers. Classes here in Tucson are so cheap, $5 drop-in, you can't beat it. So just, keep trying.
And there's also yoga for like all kinds of different things, right? Yoga for stress relief, yoga for better sleep, there's for anxiety. Is there a particular type that you like to practice for like a certain thing, or like that you
or personal practice?
Yeah.
Like what is your personal practice versus the practice you give others? Or
so my personal practice has really shifted over the years. As I was going through my yoga teacher trainings, I did my first training, 4 years ago, I think. I started very, like I said, very interested in weightlifting, very interested in like, let's do all the extra push-ups. Let's really see what we can do here. Like, I want to get strong. I want to get, I want to be pressing into a handstand. And then, of course, as my practice got more consistent and as I was more dedicated, I realized, whoa, there's so much more going on here. I'm becoming so much more mindful of my thoughts. I'm able to catch my ego when it's all of a sudden controlling the show. I'm noticing that all of a sudden I just held my breath for 45 seconds for no reason, And
I do that sometimes.
all the
what
time.
am I doing?
Like, no wonder I'm mad. I haven't breathed. So yeah, it's been such a progressive thing for me, and I just got so much more intrigued by what is actually going on the inside as opposed to what can I accomplish on the outside. So these days, even if I don't practice the asana every day, sometimes I don't even practice every week. I mean, that's just the reality of it sometimes, but I will sit in meditation for at least 15 minutes every day.
Oh,
and so meditation is such a big part of my practice these days. And I try to take my own teacher's advice when they say, as a teacher, a yoga teacher, you're going to lose your practice because every time you're practicing, you're thinking, oh, I could teach it that way, instead of just being so immersed in yourself, or you're taking a class and saying, oh, they said it that way, cool. And all of a sudden you did an hour class and you realize that wasn't for me at all, but meditation is always for me. And it's always a way for me to come back to myself and recalibrate in that way.
Yeah, so that was actually the next question we were going to ask. If you have any meditative aspects of your practice, which you do, is that something that you provide also, like a guided meditation for your students?
It's weirdly not. I felt so, I did not have a meditation practice until the end of my 500-hour training, which was, well, it was my 500-hour, but it's a 300-hour training, which was what, like 2 years ago, I think, at this point. Wow. Time flies. So until the very end of that, I actually didn't even have a meditation practice. And I felt a little shame around that. And I felt weird that I was this yoga teacher for so many years and I didn't have a connection to the seated practice. But now that it's the most impactful part of my practice, I do have that desire to maybe offer it to people. However, I don't have formal training in it, and I don't have a lot of experience going to guided meditation classes myself. So that's kind of something out there on the horizon that I can see myself really getting passionate about. I'm not there yet.
And that's okay. Honestly, like I feel the meditative practice is harder to get into. And for me too. I'm just like, what am I doing?
For a lot of people, I think. Yeah. But that's why it is so powerful to have a meditation teacher. And I think they are kind of fewer and far between. But I do have a strong desire to kind of dive into that. I've had my friends who offer meditation come to my events to kind of, facilitate that part if I want a guided meditation. And I'm always so blown away with how potent that can be and how beautiful that is. And it's hard to imagine myself coming up with those words. I feel like I'm a little more, I don't know. I feel like I'm a little just more conversational than I am. I don't have the floaty yoga teacher voice by any means.
Yeah, me either.
And you walk into a class, and no offense to anybody, I think it's beautiful, but you walk into a class and it's very, and you're putting your left hand. I can't do that. I'm like, that hand, which hand? You know what I mean? Put it behind your back. It's just my style of teaching. It's a little more direct, a little more
technical, as you said before. That's great. I actually meditate. I don't practice yoga, which I probably should, but I do stretch. Oh, okay. But I do meditate regularly every day for sleep, because I don't sleep very much. So it's like what helps me relax and clear the day. We're going to take a very quick intermission, and we'll be right back.
We just got to stop recording because it only
does 30 minutes.
Does 30 minutes.
Cool.
The 30 minutes. Hopefully having a good time. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and continue.
Okay. Got it.
What we were talking about.
And we're back. Thank you for the break. Okay, so I meditate because I don't sleep well, and I actually didn't realize that I was meditating. It's something that I just have done as long as I can remember, where I just it's like progressive muscle relaxation. I relax my muscles and move up my body. And then when I went to college and everything, and then I got a job, and I was under a great provider actually, and she also does hypnotherapy. We had her on the show, and we used to teach meditation also. So I learned through her to teach meditation, but and I would use what I knew that helped me relax, and not without realizing that I was actually teaching meditation. And then she taught me a little bit more of the formal way to do it. But it definitely changes people's lives. I worked with people that had chronic pain, so that's pain that lasts for more than 3 months without subsiding, and people that were able to practice and maintain the consistency of the meditation actually felt great relief. So it's a powerful thing, and I really, absolutely 100% believe in it. And I think it's also important to bring awareness that you can do something besides taking medication or doing other things. You can do something where you come to yourself. And when you said the thing, I'm going to kind of backtrack here, but when you said the thing about how when you're practicing your yoga, that you are your real self, that one where you remove the layers, or I forget, it was so eloquently said, but how you said that, I thought that is exactly how it feels when you get that sense of relief from meditation, and you feel like you have removed barriers from the day, and your mind has cleared, and I know also that is how some of the patients that I had would feel once they can get to that point where they can kind of not think about their pain.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome.
I'm gonna shed a tear over here.
It's really inspirational.
It brings me back to seeing that, and it's a powerful thing. And I think more people need to do it. I think we need to teach things like this in school, for coping with stress and anxiety, because so many people now have anxiety and stressors in their life, and they don't have as many coping skills as I guess. I don't know what I was going to say this before, but there are limited coping skills, and this is a tool that can be used.
Totally. I think our brain is this insane instrument that is so powerful, and we're so capable of insane things, but we're not taught how to use our brain, and we're not taught how to catch it when it's being derailed, and we're just not educated in that way. And it's a real shame, because I often think like, what kind of distress and pain and just heartache would I have avoided my entire adolescent life if I had known some of these tools and these
Yes.
just the philosophy and not even just philosophy, but just the way my brain works, and to know when certain things are happening, why it's happening, and how to not get so wrapped up in it. You know, it's so much about the identity. I think being able to find that place inside of yourself that's still and has really no emotion. It's just pure love, pure bliss. That's how I feel anyway. It's behind the thoughts. It's behind the pain. It's behind anything that's going on in the outward world. It's deep in there somewhere. And if you can learn to identify with that piece of yourself, then everything else is so much less stressful, because you know that's all outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like letting go of some trauma
Mhm.
that you just kind of don't want to face
Yeah,
with, you know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally.
So adding on to kind of like drawing your inspiration, like whenever you go through the certification process, you don't just have to have like one mentor or anything like that. But can you tell us about maybe a favorite mentor of yours? You don't have to name them or anything, but can you tell us why they were a favorite? What drew you to them, and what did you draw from them?
Wow, yeah. I mean, when you go through your yoga trainings, you just meet the most incredible people that have just, I mean, I look up to all of my teachers so tremendously. I can't even fathom the kind of work they've put in to be where they're at in terms of their practice and their business and everything. I guess I have two mentors that usually come to mind when I hear this, and it's because one of them is one of my yoga mentors and one's more of like a business mentor. The yoga one being, I shout her name loud and proud, Annie Smith is just one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. She's such a fantastic yoga teacher, and being a yoga teacher, you know that to get better at teaching, that takes so much work on the inside. It's not just learning to say how to do a pose. It's just so much personal work and discipline. And yeah, I look up to her so much, and I strive to teach more like her as much as possible. Another one is one of my very best friends, Mariah Grimes. She is somebody who kind of showed me what is possible. I mean, I never even considered some of the things that I considered. I would have never ever launched out there yoga if it wasn't for her. I mean, I was seeing her do these things and taking these chances and just putting herself out there in ways I'd never seen a peer do in my life. And as I was scared and as I wanted to take steps, she was right there rooting me along the way and giving me advice. And I still, again, she's one of my very best friends, but I also go to her for advice all the time.
So do you draw inspiration from them as well, or do you draw inspiration from things that you research yourself, or where does it all come from? Like, you know, even when you do lay out a practice for your students during the class and stuff like that, or I mean, or even the little passages that you sometimes say, because I know you say some passages during your events as well.
Cool. I'm probably unaware of it. I feel like I always teach a class, and at the end I'm like,
what happened?
What just happened? Like, I just blacked out the entire thing. It's such a mode you get into as a teacher. You gotta kind of fully embody it, which is honestly partly why I stopped wanting to teach full time. Like, it was never a desire for me to teach all week, every week, because it's a state of mind I'm personally not capable of harnessing all that often. It takes a lot for me. Inspiration, though, I am a huge music person. I mean, I draw inspiration for my classes when I'm driving in my car listening to music. I mean, I can picture moments in the class where certain sounds are happening, and I just connect so much to music. And anyone that goes to my classes, I kind of at this point unapologetically just bump beats the whole time, and I'm just like, you're in it. We're going for this. If people don't like it, you know, they don't have to come. It's what I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And but music, traveling, nature, definitely nature. The state of mind I get when I'm out camping or backpacking for multiple days, it shows me kind of where I want to be and what state I want my students to be able to achieve. And then just interactions with people. I mean, I feel so blessed. I have so many really rad people in my life, and I feel like I'm just constantly with my closest friends and my peers, I'm just blown away with some of the clever things they say. And I'm like, man, I'm going to say that. Like that. Or, like, wow, they made me laugh in this way. I didn't even realize that was a way of, harnessing humor. And yeah, I try to take inspiration from everything around me that makes me laugh, smile, like groove my body, where's that coming from? How do I incorporate that?
Yeah. So tell us, what is your like go-to song right now? Like what are you feeling? Like if you're gonna go for a ride in your car, let's say. Okay. Right now when you leave, like what would be the best song for this moment?
I'm gonna listen too.
Yeah, well, I listen to a lot of like dance music. I just am so into anything beat driven. The record label Angina Beats is just top for me. I think they just own the scene. They have this groove driven trancey music that just, it always bumps. People love it. It's a little too upbeat to put in my classes. I mean, I kind of have this idea of someday having this tent and just blasting house music while I teach. It's gonna be such a niche group of people that show up, but it's gonna be awesome.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, in terms of my classes, I mean, you can always find an Emancipator song in my playlist. You can find some, like Latrell or just deeper house in my playlist.
Okay.
I've experimented with like some old school hip hop, but without the rap. Yeah,
okay.
Without the rap, I find some like Dr. Dre beats and just throw that in there a little bit. So it's all over.
Oh wow,
it's cool.
That is kind of all over.
I must have missed that event.
Wow, so cool. Okay, tell us. We got a couple of other questions here. Tell us, what is your why? What is your why, and not necessarily only for like your business, but your why for doing what you do?
I never know. I mean, I feel like there's always a different answer for this. It just depends on
it can change. Your why today could be different than your why tomorrow. But
totally, I think just going really broad spectrum here. I love it. I grew up so dramatic. I was a very anxious kid growing up, almost borderline depressed. I mean, there was nothing wrong in my life. I was very privileged, but I was just always struggling with my mind. I always struggled with how to navigate my mental space and how to not be a victim of my emotions and a victim of change and anxiety. And
you're a creative.
Yeah, it was all over the place. And I really struggled with the idea of change, and I struggled with making friends. And yeah, it was crazy. So I had a lot of heartache really young, and everything was dramatic. I blew everything up. And as I got older, I learned things that helped so much, like the yoga practice, meditation, like changing my nutrition up, just little things in my life that I was like, what if I knew that earlier? Like, how crazy is it that these little things changed my life so dramatically? And in this world that's so overly medicated, our problems are just, I mean, I'm not going to say people don't have real problems, but so many of what we consider problems just could be so easily fixed if we just made some lifestyle choices and stopped overcomplicating it. We just went back to basics, and by finding things that really relieved my pain and my suffering and enhanced my life for the better, made me more mindful, made me more confident, made me more willing to take chances and just live, a life to my fullest potential. I want other people to be able to do that. And if that means I just learned how to teach an hour-long yoga class, and slowly the practice does its work and they find their own path, great. If it's just by, getting people out in nature more, great. If it's just by being a good friend and showing up in person and being somebody people can rely on, awesome. I want people to be able to live more fully embodied in themselves. And it's, what is that Marianne Williams quote? It's like, by being yourself and by being so fully embodied, you're liberating other people and allowing them to be more themselves too.
I like that.
Yeah. She says it better than me.
Yeah. No, that's the gist.
Going off of that, I guess we'll ask this other question real quick. Do you have any favorite quotes or passages that you could share right now for any of your students right now, or just anyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a super avid reader, and I read a lot of philosophy, so I feel like I'm just, I feel like a fortune cookie a lot of the time. I'm just always reciting quotes. And then, of course, when you get asked,
you can make your own for out there.
You just never
Get
get
a
over
fortune
them.
cookie.
Like if you follow me on Instagram, I literally post a quote every
I actually really like that idea.
I know. 5% commission.
But I always come back to this same quote that I learned in my first teacher training. My teacher's teacher, Darren Rhodes' teacher, I believe his name was Lee Loswick. He said, "You don't need your practice, not at all. But when you need your practice, you better hope you've been practicing."
Oof.
And I love
wow.
that because it's kind of like what we were saying back in the beginning. Like you don't feel like practicing whatever your practice is, whether you're an avid runner or, it's your nutrition practice or whatever it is. It's like you feel like when you're at your best, you don't need it. And that's when you forget about it. But then in moments like that where life gets really hard or dramatic or you're just overwhelmed, you hope that you've been practicing so that those discipline muscles are flexed and strong and ready, and that your gratitude muscle is strong and ready, and everything is supporting you to get you through that hard piece. That way you're back to a place where you no longer actually need your practice, but you keep doing whatever it is that you do so that when life lulls, because it always will, you're prepared for it.
Very cool.
Wow.
Who was that? Who said that?
I believe it's Lee Loswick. I hope I'm not
Loswick.
saying that incorrectly. I'm pretty sure.
The gist. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
This is kind of going along that line too, but this is also a question that we ask everybody on the show. What was the last book or movie that you read that made an impact on you, and why?
I'm like one of those. I read like 3 books at a time.
I know, me too.
Creatives.
Today,
I do the
so
same
we
thing.
get along. The book I just finished this morning was I finally read The Alchemist, and I thought it was going to be so overwhelming.
I just read that one too.
Yeah, nice. So many people have said that. But actually, the book that I read before that impacted me so hard. It was called Born to Run. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I don't think so.
It's
Sounds
about
familiar.
it's about ultra marathon running,
Yes.
which is like so much more crazy than you think.
Oh
it
my
is.
God.
Like these people run for
Oh my
over
God.
24 hours.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Then they like sleep in a little tiny tent, and then they get up and run again for
Or
another.
maybe not even in a tent. They might lean against a tree for
Yeah.
5 minutes and nap. Like
It
it's
is-
insane.
Yeah, it really is.
And so this book, it talked a lot about these people down in Mexico who were called the running people, and they just had such little traces of disease and cancer and health issues, and yet, they didn't have modern medicine or anything like that. They just pretty much ran barefoot, and they had like 65-year-old people doing these ultra marathons, and they
Whoa.
seemed to not really be aging. It was just insane. And what this book kind of like
I need
was
to read that.
I know.
It was amazing. I mean, what this book was really breaking it down to was that we're so equipped with our natural being. I mean, obviously those born with issues is like a whole anomaly, but our bodies are so naturally equipped to give us everything we need, and our lifestyles just don't promote that healthy mindset, that healthy body. And these people were running all day, every day, like our ancestry, depending on, what you believe or where we come from, we were endurance hunters for so long. And so we were chasing down game for hours and hours and hours. Our bodies were just meant to be moving. And it even talked about how modern shoes like disrupt your feet, and it disrupts the whole way you move.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, it just being a yoga instructor and being so entranced by the body and how it works, and trying to always break it back down to basics. I just thought that book was absolutely inspirational, and it makes me want to run a lot more than I do.
Yeah. It has to do a lot with their mindset down there too, then, right? So mindset could probably heal you a little bit if they're living that long without any problems.
Absolutely. I mean, they seem to be really happy people. And what's funny is they were talking about like they get super drunk on beer every night, and it just doesn't seem to impact them that
Oh
much.
my goodness.
Eating rice and corn and beans
Oh
and
my
alcohol and
gosh.
running a lot.
Sounds like my diet. Just kidding.
That's actually
Just eggs and beans, like for real though. Actually. Oh, so you have an event coming up.
I do.
Can you share those details?
The first one in a while, I actually. I gotta look at a calendar to make sure. I keep saying the wrong date.
Wait. You gotta tell us about your Colombia trip.
Oh, okay. Let's go to Colombia really quick because that was probably the most wild thing I've ever done in my life. So I've never really traveled outside the country. I've been to Europe once. This was a big jump, but after a year of being out of work because of COVID, and then I went through a really dramatic breakup, and my life just shifted so dramatically in a year that I was at this point where I need something. I hadn't been practicing, so I needed something that was gonna really just jolt me and get me out of this issue. I had such a small little world that I was living with all my problems, and I just wanted my world to be expanded and to get a better perspective. And my friend Nicolette, she is working with this group called the Guardian Medicines, and they go to Colombia and they do these service projects, and you get to integrate with these indigenous people. And we planted 500 fruit trees in these areas where these people had bad nutrition because they were up in the mountains and didn't have access to produce. And then we built these composting toilets up in this indigenous village so the people could stop contaminating the water for everyone downstream. I mean, it was
my goodness,
amazing.
It was crazy. I mean, I feel like at this point I've told so many people about it, I just kind of graze over it. But it's that was absolutely insane. What? It was awesome. We were backpacking in the jungle for 2.5 weeks, and I've never done anything like it. It was amazing.
That's really
it was hard
cool.
to come home.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Highly recommend it.
I'm just how do we know?
Yeah, they're gonna be doing more. They're gonna be doing more. I highly recommend it.
Well, let us know. Keep us in mind.
Yeah, we'll do.
I would love to do something
so,
like that.
How was the food?
The food was great. I like Sonora Mexican food, with all the spices and beans, and I found Colombian food to be a little more bland. But I love plantains, so we got a lot of plantains, and I think some of my more favorite food that I had down there was the Thai food we'd had or something like that. Yeah, we could go to the Thai food restaurant.
Well, maybe you have to go some other places because they do have. So my family's from Panama, which is right next to Colombia. So I've had plenty of Colombian food, and it's pretty good. It just depends on where you get it, what area.
Yeah. Well, I was told that if we went to the capital city, Bogota, that it'd be better.
Yeah.
We were in.
You were in the jungle.
The city we were in when we went to the city was Santa Marta, which was gorgeous. Oh. I mean, that was probably the coolest city I've ever been to. Just one of the oldest cities in South America, if not the oldest, and street art everywhere, just right on the coast. Caribbean culture. I mean, I fell in love with that city. Like I said, I like the Thai food. So.
Yeah. Anyway.
So tell us about your event.
Yes, your event.
So this event's really simple. Because it's the first one in a while, because mom students can't practice yoga when it's hailing down rain. I wanted to make this one really just tailored back to basics, very similar to how the events used to be. So it's gonna be nothing fancy. It's just gonna be up on Mount Lemon. We don't need to say where, and I'll let you know if you sign up. But it's going to be under the pine trees in this really beautiful spot that I like to go to, and just me, my boombox, potentially another offering. I haven't figured out if I'm going to have somebody else there or not. But an hour-long class, some time to hang out afterwards. I always have a photographer, so no need to have your phones out or anything. You just sit back, relax, know somebody's documenting it for you, and just enjoy the yoga. And it's on the 29th, so it's going to be in the afternoon this month.
Sounds awesome. I think my sister will be in town that day. I wonder, let me know. Well, I'll keep in touch and we'll see, because maybe I could bring her too.
Absolutely. Both are welcome.
Yeah. I'm going. Cool. Awesome. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes.
You've done great. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any more questions? Or?
No, just I'm so grateful that you took the time to come interview. It helps us because we love interviewing people throughout the community, and your interview was
gosh. Great job.
Good stuff in there.
We're going to have all of your information, like your social media and everything, in our description.
Awesome.
It'll be on Spotify, and we have our Instagram up.
I forgot about that.
We will tag you. We will tag you on there also when we post it. And yeah, we're so thankful for you to be here on our show. We really appreciate it. We had a great time. I had a great time.
Any last words?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think what you guys are doing is pretty cool. And I know when you
Thank
were
you.
talking about it at the last event that it sounded really great. So I was happy to come on. I'm very thankful you guys had me on. And yeah, just whatever your thing is, whatever keeps you grounded, whatever keeps you, tied to that piece of yourself that feels most at home, just make sure you keep doing that. And it makes everything else a lot better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
On that note, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, yay!
Bye, guys.
We're gonna end the.
Oh, now the world doesn't feel normal without these on.
Hold
Your little muffins.
on, we're still live.
Bye.
Did you call them ear muffins?
Yeah.
Immediately, and you will know. And